This is Blue Sky's amazing Ice Age 1. The very first film to kick this new studio into gear and an instant animation classic. It had a lot riding on it and it's still technically not over. But though we've already covered the 5th installment and the unofficial 6th installment too, let's go back to basics and maybe cover the sequels before we run out of winter. And dissect just what made this an icon back in the day. Oh yeah, and before we even start, we're hitting peak. This, too, we've covered for the Ice Age saga, as it's easy to forget that these movies begin with their own separate short films as a homage to old-school cartoons. Probably even the best bit of the movie, on frame 1. That is lucky. Or clairvoyant. But yes, it's all to introduce us to the harshness of this nature. The world is icy, squirrels are now saber-toothed squirrels, but at least they act in the ways we're familiar, trying to store, bury, or eat their hibernation harvest a lot less effectively in this era. It's wordless, it's universal, and it'll kick off the inciting incident in future movies with your classic. And from here, it's just escalating cartoony goodness. The crack reaches a cliff, a loop-de-loop, it severs a rift and chases Scrap back, all to be met with that iconic screech from the voice of the director. Directors love playing little guys in their own movies, huh? And now you can just sit back and feast your eyes on this escape. It's spikes, it's wide shots, it's 2 of them, it's a shrinking hallway and burgeoning eyes. Ew. All to drag us down to what brown remains are left in this Ice Age. Now the movie can begin, but what an amazing hook! Now this is another one of those movies that shaped my early cinema experience. We are in 2002, it's a prime time for animated movies it seems. So naturally, I know too many lines in this film. It's one of those. But anyway, with Scrat now as gum on the bottom of something's shoe, we pull out to see a full commuting herd of all sorts of prehistoric animals. Not so much dinosaurs, but the other interesting directions species can or have been, as we get a few exchanges from several of these side creatures.
Play extinction later.
Okay.
I haven't watched this movie in years. I'm super looking forward to the lines that obviously went over my head as a child. Now that we've established that there's a great migration away from the ice, we get to meet our first main character. Pushing literally against the grain, slightly unlikable, kinda stubborn mammoth that is Manny. And then there's Sid.
Anyone who cares about Sid?
An icon. Literally, this guy is in the runnings for one of the most iconic comedic animated characters, right? And that voice, John Leguizamo, and that lisp is just so good. The last one of the season. Sorry, I couldn't help myself. But if this movie has nothing else, it has brilliant characters at the starting line. And it establishes him well as our loser of the pack. Abandoned, unlucky, and stupid. Getting himself into all the more trouble.
Must be the last one of the season.
Huh. I guess the intonation is a bit of a Mandela effect, huh? But as much as this seems to be a random new spot at the tail end of the migration line, it's still done its purpose, so let's gather our cast together. With Sid on the run from these angered rhinos, we can now bump right back into our last guy.
Hey!
And that's how the two meet. It's quick, it's classic, the Shrek and Donkey dynamic. Maybe that in itself is a bit of a trope of the early 2000s, but at least this one will full dive into 3 characters this movie, and later down the line, 11? 14? I can't be bothered to count again.
Not them today, it's just someone else tomorrow.
And Manny is still keeping up his unlikable ways, not immediately helping out some smaller creature. It's kind of nice when your cast don't get along. Sometimes the bickering along the way makes the story all the more interesting. That being said, Manny isn't a straight villain or anti-hero, and he does have a set of morals. Though it's one I don't particularly remember coming back through the series or anything, but you gotta establish good traits in your characters early for audiences to root for them. So Manny drops us with his philosophy of,
I don't like animals that kill for pleasure.
I guess considering the usual conflict in these movies are environmental, it doesn't crop up quite as much. But hey, it's good enough. Let's roll with it. Manny instigating himself now with the threat of the sinkhole between them, only for Sid to immediately react and reveal their cards.
You were bluffing, huh?
Yeah, that was a bluff.
And like, what a great way to spin this classic action scene. Usually the mammoth would just attack at this point, but what Ice Age really thrives on is the dialogue and the circumstances. And with a dynamic of now 2 losers rather than an overpowered one, it just comes across as straight entertainment across the board. It ends up being a little bit of action, but the way the characters try to talk their way out of it first just makes it all come together a lot less cliched on a lot of beats. And finish it off with the protagonist still not quite being on the upper hand, as Sid's lack of luck pulls through even in victory.
We did it!
Like, it is all just non-stop drama, and really nice to see your main characters being kicked down a peg. But now with them technically on safe ground, we have the real union of our 2 main guys, with the premise being pretty good and standard. You've got the big guy traversing his own blasé path in the wrong direction to what is normal, and the little guy annoyingly following along for a bodyguard, but happy to go even north instead of south, considering the alternative.
Okay, so you've got issues. Look, you won't even know I'm here.
It is very Shrek and Donkey, but we are far from the tropes of the woes of an ugly ogre. Oh yeah, and then we cover this aspect of world building. It's so interesting to see how the original movie touched on humans, but the sequels never went back. It really does hold up that old fan theory that events are actually taking place in reverse order, with the 5th movie being the meteor and all that. But it's also a good time to mention how interesting the animation is. This is Blue Sky's very first attempt, and it is 2002. At this time, not even Pixar fully delved into human character scenes yet. They're in Monsters, Inc. territory, not Finding Nemo just yet. And though you can definitely see some age in those old textures and the like, the fact that this team managed to pull off a not uncanny baby and actually bring some wholesome energy to it instead is genuinely worth some praise for the time it was made. All of this is such an interesting direction to go. Or maybe I'm simply saying it because it's a direction we didn't go after this point. Either way, the scene has a purpose, and it's to introduce Player 3.
Look at the cute little baby.
Our villains of the story stalking their next meal. And though we all know Diego's gonna end up as one of the gang, spoilers, it's unavoidable. There's like a double-digit amount of movies at this point. I do think even that is a nice spin on the usual trope, though the signs of him being good aren't so clear here, other than the fact that the other saber-toothed tiger is laying it on pretty thick.
An eye for an eye, don't you think?
As if he's already one to hesitate and betray the pack. It's also interesting to hear some of the motivation also comes from humans killing some of them and using their skin to keep them warm. And like, that's just nature. Brutal nature. It's cool. Not quite so nuanced when you're talking about keeping a human baby alive for the kill though. But now, all the characters have been met in about 12 minutes, a lot faster than the later movies. Time for the beats that mix them all together. Starting off with the first night with Sid and Manny, since they're inseparable now. How badly could it possibly go? Ooh, get some glistening wet textures in there too? Early Blue Sky were being ambitious, and I think it works. It really helps you feel as down in the dumps Sid really is, and this whole exchange is pretty unmoving, so it's impressive to see how many gags they managed to spin out of this, for a scene that's ultimately just to highlight the lack of bond and touch on some foreshadowing.
You have family?
Rain, of course, turns to hail, and with Manny, he could be a blockade, a blanket, and just an arse. Like, there's so much range out of these generally simplistic scenes. And bringing back little beats with Scrat? Cinema! Doesn't affect the plot, it's a normal cartoon gag, but just helps knot the whole film together. And it's more wet textures. But let's get into the meat of the plotline. It's the saber-tooth assault on the human camp, and they don't shy away from having these human models move a little bit. Like, There is a hint of choreography with staff and teeth going on here. And its direction you can easily follow, with Diego stealthing around in the background during a long panning shot. All to culminate in the confrontation with the baby, subverted with their mother cropping up. And from here, you can guess where it goes. Following along, cornered on a cliff, and wow, actually some solid animation to portray an emotional moment? They very tactically don't give the humans any lines to deliver, so this whole scene works pretty universally already. And we have seen how well they can tell a wordless story with Scrat earlier, but even here, it all shines through. And with nothing but facial expressions, you can feel some of the weight of a mother readying to protect her child to the end of her life. It's really good on rewatch. And then it goes even further than you think, as she full-on dives into the waterfall rapids, going above and beyond your expectations. I also personally quite like how you can see humanity has developed somewhat with their domestication of the wolves, which ends up being the thing that turns the tide on their battle against the saber-tooths anyway, as we return to dialogue only from the tigers themselves.
There's Diego! Fall back!
But with the baby lost, they follow the trail with the men falling behind. Not as much emotion with them, but there's a hint there, as they too follow onto the chase. Back to Manny and Sid with a couple of specific references to nature plugged in there.
Whoa, she's gonna go praying mantis on me, you know what I'm saying?
We almost immediately kick right back into that inciting incident with yet even more emotional weight, as Manny is absolutely frozen on the reveal of... Oh, it's just so good. The rules of the movie have it so she does not speak, but it's just so impactful. And theoretically real. We don't know how far ancient humans had gone in their day-to-day experience. It's very possible something like this could have genuinely been the stakes someone dealt with. Minus the mammoth and sloth, of course. Just a couple of stairs, some somber music, full show don't tell. And the moment she feels convinced her baby is safe on this gamble that is her only hope, she's gone. Wild for this to be the plot of your very first movie. It's deep. It's like a Pixar premise almost. A scene that strikes at your heartstrings. Do we even make movies like this anymore? Especially from a newcomer's first go around. Anyway, the scene keeps rolling, as despite Manny being completely out of cold character, he switches right back to it once it's over.
Yeah, well, I'm still trying to get rid of the last thing I saved.
But you can tell just from his actions that this heavily weighs on him somehow. Something about family. You could just sense it in the subtext. And as Sid tries to be the protective figure, Manny finds a way to excuse himself onto the task.
You can't even take care of yourself. This I gotta see.
And having the two immediately at odds at each other just makes them all the more disadvantaged and fun to watch. Add in some character techniques like Manny popping onto the side of the frame, or his snout being his mouth in a POV shot, and you've got a dynamic little scene. Time to climb a cliff. In classic cartoony Sid way, every beat is just classic and iconic. It's just executed so well and correctly, you know? Effortlessly hilarious on delivery and decision.
I'm fine, I'm gonna die.
Only for the scene to continue even more onto topic 4 at this point, as surprise, surprise, our third player enters the scene. And finally, we get to see how he acts as an individual.
Name's Diego, friend.
Going for the diplomatic approach first. Well, after a couple of gay jokes.
Can't have one of your own, so you want to adopt.
Considering it's 2002, it's teetering a line, but I think not directly, even if it was maybe intended to be back then. You know what I mean? You could perceive it as not pejorative. Anyway, Diego lets them go, and his presence is what really brings Manny on board. Always protective in the moment.
All right, I'll help you bring it to its herd.
Whilst keeping in the background the comedy at every line wherever they find the chance.
I mean, it's hard to get fat on a vegan diet.
I'm not fat.
And we just keep going, as the very next scene, we're back at the human camp. This problem is surprisingly quickly resolved.
No, wait. Ah!
only for the circumstances of the plot to actually inject the conflict moving forwards. This isn't just a quest back to step 1, the humans are already long gone, and the cast have to follow them to return their baby. It's great, natural story progression, and opens to more wholesome animations with this baby. Incredible. Only for Diego to also return yet again. Gosh, it's been one scene since we last had the three of them interacting. But another beat that forces them together naturally, as Diego is a natural tracker and required to find the humans again.
It's still green. They headed north 2 hours ago.
Can you imagine if every future Ice Age character was mandatory to the crew like this? What are the many ways they lose the plot later on?
Still green. They headed north 2 hours ago.
And so, with the full stakes in mind, baby, motives, and a time window of snow closing up that distant passage by tomorrow, we can set ourselves into action, with comedy injected at every point.
'Cause I'll be chewing on it.
Help me.
It bears repeating, but every line is just meticulously put together. Sid is funny, Diego diplomatic, and Manny blunt. And we're naturally being pushed forwards. And this was attempt 1? I guess people try harder then. And nice of us to finally skip some time, because this is canonically a long trip. After like the last 4 scenes basically took place in real time. But as we come to our next scene, really it's just the writers having some fun, as this is the old 3 men and a baby routine, each clueless about the woes of how to handle a crying child, and with so many cartoon and animalistic punchlines. You got the classic slapstick,
Will you cut it out?
you've got object permanence with a scary predator,
There he is!
and you've even got milk in the animal kingdom logic.
Well, I ain't exactly lactating right now, pal.
None of this feeds the plot, and it's just baby conflict, but it is similarly solid and a great adaptation considering they're all animals.
End of the world be mighty cold.
Up next is the dodo bird scene. I kinda remember the dodo bird scene, but I feel like it's not quite as iconic. Just a quirky beat along the road, but entertaining all the same. Bouncing off of audience logic that they're now extinct, we see them fruitlessly preparing for the Ice Age with not enough food, let alone their tendency to just
Burn and die.
But they are our next hurdle for the gang, as they want their food. So in response, they get the Taekwon dodos. Okay. What follows next is your buffoonery of an action sequence. Dodos taking themselves out more than anything else, because of course they do, and culminating in an American football finale. I thought it was rugby as a kid. It's stupid. It's fun. And it all pays off.
Ah, Sid!
But it's good enough for the kid. A fun little exploration of the world, and explains why they're gone.
There goes our last female.
Gorsh.
And so it's time for another nighttime sequence, with the exact kind of conflict you would expect to see, the natural suspicions of Diego. Get a bit of Sid humor in there, and settle down that he's alright, only to reveal that he's not. I love this glowing eyes effect, man. It's not very common in all of animation, but same with Ice Age specifically. I remember it as a gag in like the 5th movie, and it really worked then too. But though he doesn't fully commit at this time, we do see the rest of his gang for some expositions of his inner thoughts.
I'm bringing a mammoth.
It's not that he has a change of heart, he has a change of plans. Brilliant, say less. The smartest of the Saber bunch from the looks of things.
Let's get him.
Not yet.
And a slow billowing of stakes. That's good storytelling right there. Not a step wrong so far.
Who wouldn't want a family, I always say.
Brill. Don't know how Sid so effortlessly found these people, but a great gag nonetheless. It's what Sid excels at. It's what Sid excels at. Why do I write like this? Reveal that he's been caught and comment on the dating space in this world, and you're golden.
Well, the sensitive ones get eaten.
So what follows next is another super required scene of a different kind for opening up our characters, as it's only Manny and the baby. A chance to see his softer side.
What's so threatening about you?
And it's nice. You can tell this is a big, guarded guy for some reason, so you really start to see the heart of this movie. Trying to be distant, but the little guy is growing on him.
You're a brave little squirt, I'll give you that.
All the while, the other two are thwarting those rhinos from before.
The tiger beat us to him.
Nice. That's conflict 1 sorted, I guess. And from there, we're back to another walking montage. It has to be, but with the gang a bit more tightly together and plenty of gags to go around. Trying to adapt the world of Ice Age to be relatable. You've got family dynamics.
Don't make me reach back there!
You got a very unusual spin of traffic lights. Again though, really brave to take on this animation prompt. Warping, transparent ice textures? This is insane! And a joke I don't think I ever realized as a kid, this movie's set in the UK for one shot. I probably would have noticed better if we focused on it first, or maybe moved to a wide shot, but I get it now.
Modern architecture. It'll never last.
I feel like my eyes aren't drawn to the rocks naturally in this shot, but hey, that's just me. So maybe I literally didn't notice the rocks as a kid. Anyway, we get some plot spliced in there too, with Diego hiding the evidence of his pack and looping us back to Scrat even.
Pack of troubles.
These guys knew they hit gold with this guy, and they did. So no wonder they kept bringing him back. And one forced detour later,
Move, sloth!
and we come to, yet again, another iconic scene from this movie. Another contender for the scene that changed Ice Age. It's the cave. One of the largest action sequences of this movie, and absolute icy gold throughout. But it starts off with a museum sequence first. With a world concept like the Ice Age, you can bet there are a load of questions and jokes the writers wanted to capitalize on, and boy did they. So we start off with the group splitting up as Sid gets left behind to explore more of the cavern without commentary. The music now coming in big for this montage of antics. It's not relevant to the plot at all, but it's great fun. Hey there, thank you for making it to the halfway mark of this video. Come subscribe if you haven't already for more amazing animated movies. We're going to try and cover the amazing Ice Age 2 this same winter, and eventually we'll do the whole saga. So far we've done 5, 1, and a scene. I'm not very good at chronology. Still, thank you for joining along, and let's get back to the second half of this video. For any kids wondering where dinosaurs are in this prehistoric time, they're already gone, ready to see in preserved ice. Or you could read it as cheeky foreshadowing to the third movie. Technically, they wouldn't even need the underground. Could just defrost this guy. I personally adored, and still do, the stages of life joke for Sid. Like, that's a clear visual gag I fully understood the reference to at age 6. Super solid stuff, and oh my god, they actually foreshadow movie 5. Maybe this movie never truly jumped off the deep end. Still, cinema. And then we have the actual action sequence start. Now this is your classic Mario 64 slider sequence. An icy roller coaster seems like such a no-brainer of a sequence for a movie this specifically ice-themed. And it goes on for a long time. I could ramble in this paragraph for a solid 3 minutes and still not run out of time, which is kind of insane for such animation-heavy shots. This is where the slapstick entertainment factor of Ice Age really shines through. Usually just reserved for Sid alone, but I think this movie really stands out when everybody is on the back foot. And having an innocent, lucky character at the center of this cast really helps ground this small collection in a way I feel is kind of missing in the future movies. It's a totally different dynamic down the line, but I do love the struggling babysitters trope. Not to mention, so many fantastical ideas across this slide. As you'll likely have seen scattered through this paragraph. The flying, the wall, Scrat's reappearance, and a Titanic reference in there.
Captain, iceberg
ahead! You could just tell this was a smorgasbord of ideas, brilliantly executed for a first attempt. Not sure how the baby survived going over the spikes earlier, though. They just don't make movies like this so consistently anymore. I guess quite literally on the Blue Sky Studios front. But we'll keep covering their movies, bad and good. And there's plenty to go. And speaking of good, this cave sequence isn't done yet.
Yeah! Who's up for round 2?
As we reach an even bigger iconic scene that changed the series. We've had the biggest action swing, now it's time for the emotional swing, as we reach the cave paintings scene. Literally illuminated with golden lighting. I never really pieced together that this is likely where some humans genuinely would have been based until now, but it's not relevant. You know where this scene is really going. Get some comic commentary about sloths in there.
You know, you never see any sloths in these things. Have you ever noticed?
And then we get to the real kicker. It's the mammoth set. This whole movie, Manny has been one big guarded and distant character emotionally. You can catch a couple of cracks, but his entire history is guarded away. And this scene's the one that will finally open up about it, as he's caught up in the display of a mammoth family. Staring at the artwork like he has stared several times in this movie in a moment of vulnerability. As we soon transition to 2D animation as the cave paintings itself warp into a fading animation of their own, presenting the story in a wordless visual treat, however tragic it may be. And though I originally thought it was kind of vague whether Manny was the kid or the father or just witnessing a story, looking at it again as an adult, I think it's pretty clear. Though we see actions from every character, we very specifically focus on the father's actions more than most. First being content with his little family, and then just as fearful when they're attacked by the humans of the story. And what's more, the ending of the story I think is pretty clear as much as they don't show it. We last see the mother and child cowering in a corner as humans with rocks appear above them. And that final scream is the reaction to the two being bludgeoned by those falling rocks. It seems the father survived by simply fighting back and lost his family in the scuffle. Manny the Mammoth is 100% in my take also the father in this story. And that surprises me. You gotta remember, the events of the future movies aren't set yet. Manny doesn't have a family and doesn't plan to have a family. And I think it's because in this movie's canon, he already had one. He is a tragic father, closed off and blunt. And that adds so much more to his character than simply losing his parents as a kid. It kind of makes the sequels feel a little less impactful for me, since this history, I think, gets thrown away for a new family. But at least he becomes overprotective, which you can infer from this same backstory. Still, wow. And it's not just this revelation that makes this scene so good, but how they go further with it. As the story doesn't just end on that tragedy, but on hope for the future. As when going to touch the redrawing of his child, he's met with the hand of an infant of the same species that killed his own family. Innocence and replication across sides, and Manny accepts it anyway, healing from it. It explains the reason he's been so overprotective in the first place right from the start of this movie's conflict, and he even takes comfort with their affection. With tears in his eyes, man? Are you kidding me? Very clearly making parallels between this child and the baby mammoth, and finding a use for his maternal instincts in another way. Doing good and protecting another innocent infant. That's bloody stellar. And they use it to project some of Diego's character development in a subtle moment? Having him getting emotionally invested to direct his progression? This is how you write characters, man! So much show don't tell, with symbolisms and parallels and a beat that pushes multiple characters forwards. And funny on the side for the unserious too.
Brother,
The writing behind these 4 characters is just perfectly executed at every notice. And if the big scrat wasn't in this movie, easily, this is the scene that changed Ice Age 1. I kinda wish I had covered this scene instead of that one sometimes. Ugh, and it only just continues as we now have a brief and wordless emotional moment with the humans. Just a comforting hand on the shoulder, and you can read so much into it. The rest of the human tribe have given up on the search for his wife and child. The wolves have lost the scent, and he has to move on as they continue to the Twin Peaks. Every character has room for real tragedy, and it's never a good guys versus bad guys. It's just brutal nature. Only for the cameraman to show off as we pan away from the humans to this giant landscape and over to our animal cast in one big shot. Nice.
Did you hear that, little fella? You're almost home.
But now that we're done with the sadness, let's get right back into the action with another hurdle on their quest. Another environmental one. We've had cold as ice, let's incorporate lava now. And once again, it's not just action for the sake of action, although it of course lingers to have fun in the moment in there wherever it can.
Come on, keep up with me.
I would if you were moving!
But this time is in fact used to further work on the characters, as Diego is shown to be most vulnerable here, and Manny to be the one committing to the rescue. Also, I gotta say, this particular dynamic of being saved by the one who's most at risk is such a great little additive to this trope. Really helps work on the stakes. And they fully flourish with it, having Diego saved with a throw, and Manny now the one taking the hit. It is full drama and plausible since we finally saw his full arc, only to save us with a flying chunk of ice, actually foreshadowed earlier when it was Diego at the hot drop. A great, intense action sequence right after the last one. This movie is great for attention time, and it bonds our characters even more together, so it's plot relevant.
That's what you do in a herd. You look out for each other.
Though Sid's right, this
We are
is
the
the
weirdest
weirdest
herd
herd
I've
we've ever
ever
seen. And a collection of misfits mashed together is always such a great time for narrative writing. I guess that's kind of an extra problem for the future cast, since half of them are mammoths. Anyway, we haven't seen the saber-tooth pack in a good long while now. It's been 20 minutes in this 80-minute movie. That's an eternity. All to really get us to warm up to Diego in the meantime, and it's done wonders. Great pacing. We get to see they're hungry, one guy is the real vicious one of the pack, and we get to hear some tactics on how to take down a mammoth, which is both well thought out and well directed for this particular scene.
First, you have to force it into a corner.
Again, show don't tell, or multitask both. Nicely done. And as for our main crew, they invent fire.
I'm a genius.
Is it a little convoluted considering that's very much a human thing? Kinda, though they also knew of the concept earlier, and they also talk in the universe, so I'll allow it. It's a place for all these previous beats to manifest together, as now Diego's getting given strike 3 towards warming up to everyone. He's had the backstory, his life has been saved, and now even the kid is approaching him after they've stayed separate this whole movie.
No, go to him. Good job.
And the awkwardness Diego's voice actor brings to this is all so fantastic. The voice acting across the board is just brilliant. And though it's certainly some celeb casting, I think it's just underground enough to really have their talent shine rather than their star factor of modern animated movies. Nailing the final moment in when describing Manny as...
He's a good guy.
Yeah, he is.
Before bed. Simple, wholesome, fab. Add in one more Scrat cartoon gag, since I guess he's just a serial stalker to these guys now. I forgot how recurrent he was in this film. and we're good to set off. We've now reached our finale of sorts, where all the consequences come together. As we come to a random cave piece in the middle of the snow right before the overpass, we can spot the Sabertooths, and Diego finally speaks up.
There's an ambush waiting for you.
And coming out with all of the classic betrayal lines you can imagine.
Trust you? Why in the world would we trust you?
Hey, it's 2002. These cliche lines were still fresher back then. But I love the brutality of hanging Diego up using a tusk. This may be a quirky family movie, but in premise, there's a lot of brutality in this world.
Because I'm your only chance.
They agreed to collab off-screen, and Diego returns to the pack.
Hello, ladies.
This is gonna be one of those classic, the audience doesn't know the plan so they can enjoy it roll out. Again, just great narrative writing, with Diego egging the weakest link forwards.
I said wait for the mammoth!
As Sid comes with his own retort, skis! What great, silly fun. What it is really is another chance for some great animations as the camera goes for this handheld effect sometimes entailing Sid.
It's slalom, baby!
Not to mention a collection of quarter pipes, half pipes? Separated half pipes? For Sid to show off his skater boy phase. Gotta love the way this movie consistently adapts modern human antics into the natural world, only to keep us on the edge of our seat with a very Sid ending. Looking like a mistake Sid would of course make, even when it's exactly to plan. You know the baby's not real. But it works for the first impression of a 6-year-old kid, as Manny now appears to join the fray.
Surprise!
And now we hit the true final battle. Saber-toothed tigers versus mammoths. All the players have entered the field to some degree. Now let's see how it all rolls out.
There he is.
Sid returning to the true child, and Zeke catching up to him, but taken down with some quick reflexes.
Survival of the fittest!
Logically, Sid is not winning any fights, so it makes total sense for the environment to do it for him. Better still with the stupidest saber-toothed villain of the pack, so I think this is totally earned. And even the baby contributes a little bit with his warning, as Diego makes his first move, defining his stance.
Leave the mammoth alone.
And just as quickly gets knocked out, all to lead to the foreshadowing plan from earlier. Manny perfectly cornered in the choreography. We know how it's supposed to go. We know our main guy Soto is gonna go for the neck, and so... Alright, I'll be honest. The execution of this beat is not my favorite. It feels a hint undercooked to me. Is it a censorship thing? Like, is this meant to be a way deeper cut? Conceptually though, it's great. The one factor that wasn't included back in the preparation scene, the wild card they literally didn't account for, is the thing to subvert the final strike. Brilliant writing. And though the mammoth is saved, there's still the matter of the... But with everything coming together, as we've seen, the mammoth is saved and specifically bonded with the baby target, and so, as is natural to roll out from here. Taken down not by some brutal move on our protagonist's front, this is a family movie after all, but more brutal environmental effects? That tracks considering how deadly the rest of this landscape has been. And with Soto down, the pack quickly retreats.
We did it!
We were some team, huh?
Only for Diego to now be our emotional sacrifice play. Well, I mean, obviously no, but it is an interesting narrative choice. If you took this movie in a bubble, the anti-hero doing the right thing at the last minute and loses himself in the play is a nice arc for the guy. Not to mention adding a sad child and you can really milk the moment.
Hey, knock it off, Squirt.
Only for him, and this is surprising when you've seen every other movie, to stay down and be left behind to catch the humans in time. They seriously fade away from this scene as it is. Fake out deaths were way longer back in the day. We're just cowards now. But arguably a needed move, as Diego being present at the reunion would for sure complicate the dynamic against the humans. As we next come right to the overpass. Our main human pausing right in front of the sunset, the lighting symbolism for the end of the day, and on to the next. Not ready to leave behind his hopes just yet, and for good measure, as that hesitation allows him to see... We're just straight jumping into both finales. And what's especially nice is since this is a human scene, we're back to totally wordless. Manny doesn't speak, Sid cowers behind him, and the baby is hidden from view. Perfect for all the tensions of this uncommunicable standoff. And only intensifying as Manny disarms the man, it all comes to a head as a misread of a swipe coming in, eventually subdued finally with... Mission achieved. All of this journey, all of the hurdles and conflicts, and we do successfully reach the goals we were hoping for. A chance for real connection with these wordless humans. Fun fact, apparently daycares and nurseries in real life often omit to mention if their kid takes their first steps, so the parents can be the ones to see it. And it's only once the baby has been reunited and is then voluntarily returned briefly to the animals that they begin speaking. Back to the bubble without the adult humans involved.
Don't forget about us.
We won't forget about you.
About that, ironically, I do think if I had to pitch the technical 7th movie that Disney is absolutely doing, I think a version that loops back to this movie, giving us an aged Ice Age baby, could be an interesting direction that at least fleshes out something already seen, rather than digging into thinning territory. Or maybe it's nice that the human aspect of this world was never approached again, you know, keeps it in this succinct, perfect little bubble, because they nailed it in this movie with so many individual decisions. I mean, he can't speak, but just the face on this man tells you everything you need to know. Oh, and with the teary eyes again too? I love how they just silently appear on characters and aren't overplayed. That's what it's all about, man. And to continue on with the happy ending, the two parties part ways at the perfect time for... Only the baby catches the saber-tooth. The perfect hidden goodbye that causes the least conflicts. And to end a goodbye on a baby with peekaboo? Oh, incredible work. And from there, all goals have been achieved. Sid has a protector, Manny has a family, Diego has a herd, the baby is returned, and the three can finally migrate south, as everyone else in this movie has already done. Chuck in a line of logic that both explains everything and opens more questions.
You know humans can't talk.
And end your movie on a line that's a perfect commentary even 24 years later.
You know what I could go for? Global warming.
And there you have an absolute cinema of an animated experience. Oh, and also a bonus scene of the true ending of the Ice Age saga. 20,000 years later, Scrat is defrosted, only to bring us right back to the start of the franchise, cracking open a rare sand texture and destroying the lands with a mirror shot composition. And that was Blue Sky's amazing Ice Age 1. For a first go, this movie I think nails every single aspect it was going for. In fact, I think I rank this movie even higher having seen it as an adult. It is unabashedly hilarious. The characters are simple in their dynamics, but used to the fullest. And the babysitter dynamic, I think, really is the perfect wrench for this trio. The soundtrack is brilliant, and I love the use of certain instruments to reflect the time period. A lot of more tribal wind instruments for this early era of humans, and a showcase that Blue Sky really had a solid lineup of characters when they started. Several sequels of this movie would continue to be bangers, and the voice acting remains stellar. Did you realize Tara Strong and Jack Black were in this movie? Apparently he's Zeke, the rabid tiger. But as it spread itself so thin, it does become a shame to think how these guys ended up. especially since taking this movie on as a solo piece feels even more impactful. I mean, Manny as a grieving father is a lot stronger with only this movie's canon in mind. And I think this was intended to be a one and done, looking at how it was structured. It's a headcanon we're all free to run with, if you want to ignore the next two greats anyway. Besides, me? I can't miss Ice Age 7 for the world. But I think I've praised this movie well enough. If we're lucky, we can release the second installment this same winter, since I doubt you'd want to watch this movie in July, right? I'll see what I can do. But for now, my name's been Dazz. Thank you very much for reaching the end of this video, and cheerio. Wow, I've been recording this for 1 hour and 20 minutes. That's exactly the length of this movie. Oops.
Yeah! Who's up for round 2?